You're listening to Simply the Best Sports Take, the best podcast breaking down the best stuff in sports with host Sean Bingham. His takes are so good, he dropped the mic, but then you wouldn't be able to hear him, and that would suck.
Yeah, welcome in to STB Sports Take, Simply the Best Sports Podcast. We're actually shutting her down. I don't like sports anymore. Just kidding. The Jazz, I think I heard they had a game last night. I didn't really watch, not really too concerned about the outcome. Yeah, I'm wearing the Jazz hat. I'm depressed, but not really. We're on YouTube. We're on Spotify. We're on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Anchor Podcasts. Everywhere you get your podcasts, we are there. The Jazz are not, though. They blew a huge opportunity last night. We're going to talk all about that. Yes, I have the Jazz hat on. Hope is not lost. I will say this. Hope is not lost. I had a full podcast. I didn't do a podcast yesterday. Had a full podcast prepared about the stars aligning and all this stuff. Because what have I talked about? Oh, my fan's going, by the way. I'm going to silence that for us. But I've talked about this repeatedly on the podcast where, like, sometimes it takes getting, an injury to the right person at the right time. You never wish it on anybody. But, I had said at the end of my last podcast, I wouldn't hate it if Kawhi Leonard had to miss a game. Well, he did, and he's actually going to miss more, probably the entire rest of the postseason, it looks like, with an ACL injury of some sort. They're not going to rush him back. He's way too valuable, and it wouldn't do any good anyway. So very high likelihood that Kawhi Leonard is out, and, Kyrie Irving is out. James Harden is banged up. Chris Paul tested positive for COVID, so he's now in COVID protocol, which will likely mean a couple of weeks, which likely means he misses at least 2 or 3 games of the Western Conference Finals. The red carpet was laid out before us as the Utah Jazz for not just a conference finals appearance or a finals appearance, an actual title. It's laid out right in front of us. Unfortunately, the Jazz are dealing with an injury to Mike Conley. We're dealing with an injury to Donovan Mitchell. That injury is not being talked about near enough. Donovan Mitchell is clearly banged up. He's clearly hurt. His ankle is clearly bothering him. He was very ineffective last night compared to how he typically has been. And it's obvious it's his ankle. He's not even trying to get to the hoop. So the injury bug has bitten us as well. You probably saw LeBron's tweets going viral about how I told you so. They started the season too soon. We needed more time off from the bubble. And I knew this was going to happen. I don't know if I'm entirely buying into it. To have several months off, then just have to play basketball again. Seems like you should be fine, but he's right. A lot of guys are hurt. So we'll see. It's not over. This is a best of 7, and it's just 3 games to 2. It's not a best of 5. It's a best of 7 for a reason. So the Jazz, hope is not lost. Mike Conley, I think Mike Conley probably would have gone last night. And if Kawhi Leonard was going to play, it was only after they announced Kawhi Leonard was out that then the Jazz came out and said, like, oh yeah, Conley's going to be out too. He had a minor setback. Well, they better fix whatever that is, It'll be tough if he comes out like Anthony Davis and tries to play and he's 3 minutes in. I mentioned this in a podcast a few days ago, earlier this week. You don't want to, and I guess even the one recently, you don't want to rush him back and have him, it's pointless. It's pointless. It just furthers his injury, and it doesn't really do us any good anyway. If he could be like a James Harden, and I'm going to get into that, where he comes out and stays healthy, doesn't do a whole lot on the stat sheet, but just his presence makes a big difference, that could be very beneficial. The Nets definitely benefited from James Harden being on the court the other night, even though he was like 1 of 10 or something like that. So maybe Mike Conley could have that effect. Maybe Donovan Mitchell plays a slightly different role. So let's we're already into it. Let's just keep going. But Jazz Clippers last night, huge opportunity blown for the Utah Jazz. And I'm going to say it, and I mean this. This is not clickbait. This is not hot take, trying to get views or whatever. I really genuinely mean this. If the Jazz don't win this series, last night will go down as one of the absolute worst losses in franchise history. One of the absolute worst in franchise history. The red carpet is laid before us to win to win a world championship. A world championship, an NBA Finals title, the elusive title. It's laid out before us. We're the best team remaining. We're not fully healthy, but we're probably the most healthy, right? Like, Conley looks like he's very close to coming back. Donovan Mitchell's still out there at least. I mean, Kawhi Leonard's by far the Clippers' best player. James Harden and Kyrie Irving are absolutely critical to the Nets' success. Chris Paul, we've talked about the Chris Paul effect. They're not winning. The Suns aren't winning anything without him. And those are the teams kind of in our way. I'm not worried about a Hawks team or a 76ers team or a Bucks team. It's just those three. It's the Clippers, the Suns, and the Nets. And all three of them are in worse shape than we are. And we had a home game without the opposing team's best player to go up 3-2, and we lost. Sad stuff. I don't even know what to say. It was so frustrating to watch. We come out guns a-blazing, red hot, can't miss. But guess what? The Clippers couldn't miss either. I remember looking at the score, and I'm like, this is not good. We have a text thread going on with some friends. We're like, this is not good. This is not good. We're shooting lights out. We can't play any better, and we're up by 5. We can't play any better than that in the first half, and we're up by 5. Well, guess what? We went 3 for 24 from three-point land in the second half. 3 for 24. Stop shooting threes, guys. Like, we don't need to shoot 100 threes a game. I get that that's like our thing, so I want us to shoot a lot of them. I want us to lead the league in attempts because we led the league in makes as well. But you can't be so one-dimensional. And towards the end, we were kind of just jacking them up, trying to claw our way back into it with one fell swoop and air balls everywhere. It was sad. It was so sad. But it's actually the Jazz's first 3-game losing streak of the entire season. They never lost 3 straight games until last night, 3 straight to the Clippers. Up 2-0, now down 3-2. All momentum has shifted towards them. We're now going back to Los Angeles. It will be a capacity crowd in LA on tomorrow night, Friday night. So, man, it sucks. It sucks. But I will say this. If Donovan Mitchell can be 70% of himself, and if Mike Conley can be 70% of himself, and the other guys can step up, we are still the favorites with them not having Kawhi Leonard. The question is, how hurt is Donovan Mitchell? How hurt is Mike Conley? Can they both play, and can they play at least somewhat effectively? If they can, and the Jazz don't choke it away, this is still a series to be won by the Utah Jazz. If we don't win this series, though, I'm telling you now, if we don't win this series, this will forever be looked at, by me at least, and I think by many others, as one of the worst losses in franchise history. It's on a silver platter. It's on a silver platter. It's ready for us. This is our toughest opponent, in my opinion, that's left, because I think the Nets, while they're the best team, they're the most banged up, and I think it's just going to last. I think it's just going to get worse. I don't know what's going to happen with Harden and Kyrie, but those are pretty significant injuries they're dealing with. Harden is back, but man, one wrong move and that could happen again, it seems like. So anyway, it's just really unfortunate. So couple takeaways from the game. I mentioned how they were red hot. We were red hot. It was very fun to watch in the first quarter. Everyone was just shooting lights out. We did get up by 10 at one point. That felt good. I remember thinking like, okay, we're going to pull away now. This is great. Here we go. We're probably going to win this one big because they don't have Kawhi. I was almost like a little bummed out. Like, I'd rather beat them with Kawhi. But really, and I had this whole thing prepared too about how even if we beat them without Kawhi, that doesn't take away from the fact that we beat them, because we're without Mike Conley. He's an all-star and he's a starting point guard. He's a humongously critical piece of our team. We've not played with him for 5 straight games now. He hasn't played. Donovan Mitchell for 2 or 3 straight games now is clearly hurt. Very, very obviously hurt. It's the same ankle that made him miss a ton of games. It's bothering him. It's going to continue to bother him, unfortunately, and we just got to hope it can be minimized as much as possible, because without him, we have no shot. So we just need him and Conley to be at least 70%, and then guys like Bogdanovich. And Bogdanovich was, man, he was on fire. Went 6 for 6 from 3 to start, and then he was just ice cold after that. It was just, man, it was a game of runs, and it was unfortunate. Playoff P gets the last laugh right now, though. I mean, it's not over. Again, the series is not over. I want to make that clear. It's a best of 7. It's not a best of 5. It's a best of 7. But Playoff P, he stuck it to us. We've taunted him. We've made fun of him. And honestly, rightfully so. Not rightfully. Maybe it's not ever good to taunt or make fun. But you know what I'm saying? Like, he didn't deserve the Playoff P nickname. He still doesn't. They haven't won the series. But these last 3 games, he's crushed us. He's absolutely crushed us. Last night, he was by far the best player on the court. It was like he was in a world and class of his own. And then, Bogdanovich was probably next after that. Reggie Jackson is somehow a superstar when he plays against the Jazz. Like, who is this guy? How is Reggie Jackson doing this to us? He can't miss. The guy can't miss. His confidence is just like, it's just brewing. It's like overflowing with confidence. And Paul George now has his confidence up. Confidence is a big deal, you guys. Like, mentally, sports are, it's critical. Confidence is critical, and we've given them so much confidence now. We've lost a little bit of our own, and now we have to go on the road. So the hill that we have to climb is very steep. It is climbable, but it is very steep, very difficult. I give us very low chances of winning. In fact, as I do this podcast in real time, I am going to look at the Vegas odds. Here we go, NBA Finals futures. I'm going to see how they've shifted. I don't know if this is up to date because it actually still has us. Has us ahead of the Bucks. Has us third. This is weird. Go put money on the Clippers. Well, the Clippers. Actually, you know what? You know why this did this? This is okay. This is the reason it shifted like this is because the Clippers are without Kawhi, likely for the rest of the postseason, and they can't win without him. They can't beat the Suns. They can't beat the Nets. They can't beat the Bucks. Unfortunately, it looks like they might be able to beat us, but I don't think they can beat anybody else. I'm a little surprised, though, that the Jazz, I guess this is right. So it has, sorry, I'm sitting here looking at it and not telling you what it says. It has Nets as 1, Suns 2, Jazz 3, Bucks 4, Clippers 5. So that's the order, and then it has 76ers still ahead of the Hawks. But the top 5 go Nets, Suns, Jazz, Bucks, Clippers. And the reason is they did say to this morning, I've seen, I don't know if it's official, for good, but it looks like Kawhi Leonard's out for the remainder of the postseason. And without him, they can't win the title. They just can't. And so that makes sense that the Clippers would be lower because if the Jazz can squeak by the Clippers, they would have the better chance against the Suns and then the better chance against the Nets. So I actually think these Vegas odds are accurate. But anyway, I digress. So, all right, other notes. Yeah, I mentioned how I thought Conley sat probably because Kawhi was sitting. But yeah, playoff P. I mean, the guy dominated us in every way, shape, and form. Donovan Mitchell scored a postseason low 21 points, and it snapped a 6-game streak of 30-plus point games. His ankle was hurting him. I mean, even like just stepping back, from the foul line, he was limping. Every time he went to the floor, he would kind of slide, like on his butt, just like clearly, I'm in pain. I got to like just, kind of whatever, like wince and in pain down here for a minute, and then I can get back up and go. It just tough. It was just tough. And I hate to see us be so one-sided. I was very surprised Jordan Clarkson wasn't in at the end. I was watching it with some friends and I was like, why is Clarkson not in? Our best playmaker is Donovan Mitchell. He's hobbled. He's a fraction of himself right now. Our second best playmaker, at least playmaking scorer, is Jordan Clarkson. Why is he not in? Joe Ingles, I like Joe. He's a very serviceable role player, but that's all he is. He's a role player, and he doesn't seem to rise to the occasion very much. Clarkson has confidence. Clarkson will go out there and confidently shoot. He might miss 5 in a row. He'll be just as confident on that 6th one. And it's a roller coaster with him. I've talked about it repeatedly that I don't always love his game. I don't always love his shot selection. But last night, he was exactly what we needed towards the end of the game. I don't know if we were going defensive-minded. We had Royce in there. Royce is way too timid offensively. He'll have wide-open threes where the guy can shoot 40+%, and he'll pass him up. And I'm like, dude, step up. We need you right now. Mike Conley is out. Donovan is a shell of himself. You guys have to step up. And Royce is passing up wide-open threes. And I wanted to see Jordan Clarkson in the game late. They put him in at the very end when it was already out of reach. But the whole last several minutes of the fourth, we needed a spark. We needed something, and they wouldn't put him in. And it was one of the most frustrating games I've ever watched in my entire life because I was just thinking of everything that we were ruining. So if we can get to Game 7, I will be there. I have tickets to Game 7, so... And obviously, the only way we can win is if it goes to 7. I had a friend, she actually requested that I mention this in the podcast, so I'm going to. Gina, and she texted me last night, and she's like, hey, if I say Jazz in 6, is that correct? This is after the loss, by the way. And I just laughed. I said, no. That's not correct. It's impossible for the Jazz to win in 6 now because it's a best of 7 and we're already down 3-2, so we can't win in 6. The next game is 6, and that would just tie it if we win. And she's like, so what do I say? I said, you got to say Jazz in 7. So she's like, okay, put me on your podcast. So Jazz in 7, everyone. That's what we're going for, is Jazz in 7. I did say from the very beginning this was going to go 7 games. I didn't think that we'd lose Game 5 without Kawhi Leonard playing. But I also didn't think Donovan Mitchell would get hurt. I didn't think Conley would still be sitting out. So there's a lot of things happening, and injuries have been the story of the postseason. They've just been the story of the postseason. So I'm rooting for the Jazz. I'm actually going to look up the line. Let's do that in real time too, because I want to see who's favored in that Game 6, because Kawhi's not going to play, but we're also looking at a potentially Mike Conley out, potentially Donovan Mitchell, like a shell of himself. It's in LA, packed house. Let's see what the line is for that game tomorrow night. We have Utah favored by 2. Interesting. Utah is favored by 2 in that game. So Paul George needs to come back down to earth. I know he's laughing at us now, and rightfully so, but he has not won the series yet. Playoff P is not playoff P until he wins this series. He dominated us last night, though. He dominated us last night real good. In fact, let's pull up the box score, then we're going to move on to some other stuff. So we actually shot, for as red hot as we came out, we ended up the game only 37% from 3, which is actually below our season average. So the Jazz, as weird as it sounds, shot from 3 below average. The whole year, their average was like 39%, 37% last night. 1 or 2 more threes makes the difference. 45% from the field. The Clippers, who, by the way, shot a league best 40% from three-point land this season, shot 40% exactly last night, 16 of 40. The Jazz took 54 threes and only 26 twos. I don't like that brand of basketball. I don't like it. I want us to shoot a lot of threes. I don't think we need to be shooting 60% of our shots from 3. We can't be so one-dimensional. Jordan Clarkson, what did I say? I'm just seeing this right now. I said that he was the spark plug we needed. I said that he was the only guy on the team that was a plus in the plus-minus. The only guy on the team. Donovan Mitchell was a 0, so he was neither plus nor minus. Everyone else was a minus except for Jordan Clarkson. He played 29 minutes. He was a +5. He was the only guy on the team. Why was he not in? Quinn Snyder should have won Coach of the Year. It's a regular season award, though. Like, this is the playoffs. This is where you play the same team over and over and over. And game plans have to change. Lineups have to change. We're watching, like, they went small. And every time we take Rudy Gobert out, they crush us. Rudy Gobert is so critical. Gobert was a -4, which was actually third best on the team behind the guys I mentioned. Clarkson at a +5, Donovan at a 0. Gobert is so critical, but every time he comes out, we're getting crushed. They're going small, and they've shifted everything. They're changing their lineup. They're not even hardly playing Rondo. Luke Kennard's getting more minutes. Reggie Jackson's become like a focal point of the offense. And we just don't have the athletes. The Jazz just don't have the athletes. I hate to say it, but like, we're just not that athletic. And it kind of sucks because in Utah, I'm used to cheering for BYU and I'm used to cheering for the Jazz, right? Those are kind of like teams I've cheered for as I've grown up. And it's been the same story with all the teams. We're just not athletic. What is it? Like, why can't the state of Utah have good athletes? Our best athlete is Donovan Mitchell. He's a little hurt. And our second best athlete is probably, honestly, Jordan Clarkson. Bogdanovich isn't super athletic. Obviously, all these guys are athletic. They're in the NBA. I get that. But compared to other NBA players and other NBA stars, we're just not very athletic. We have shooters. And when we're off, George Niang, this guy, he's not very good at basketball outside of shooting wide open threes. He's a liability out there. He played only 9 minutes, and he was a -4, so he was kind of a non-factor. But I don't like seeing him out there. Favors only played 6 minutes, was a -7 in 6 minutes. What did I say? When freaking Gobert comes out, Favors gets 6 minutes, 6 freaking minutes, and is a -7. So I don't know if we got to look to somebody else in the bigs, because Favors isn't getting it done. I loved his effort in game 1. Since then, he's kind of been a liability. We've got to get game planning better. Like, this is on Snyder. This is on Quinn Snyder, because the playoffs is a different animal. This doesn't mean, I saw somebody on Twitter like, oh, the same fans that are, saying Snyder should have been Coach of the Year are now saying that, that he's messing up or he should be fired. He shouldn't be fired. He's one of the greatest coaches in the league. Definitely don't want to fire him. I want him to learn how to win playoff games, though, playoff series, because it's a different animal. It's a totally different animal. It's the same team over and over, and teams can adjust, and we're not adjusting. We're just like, I guess we'll shoot more threes. That's not the game plan. That's not going to do it. We got to get guys. I want to see Bogdanovic in the post more. I want to see Rudy Gobert more integral. Rudy Gobert took 8 shots. He's 6 of 8. And all of those were offensive rebound putbacks. He had 3 possessions in a row where we missed and he got a putback. 4 actually, because then on the 4th one he got a putback and got fouled. And I remember my buddy Bo, who I was watching with, I was like, that's 4 misses that he turned into 7 points. And so, I'm really frustrated. I am. I'm really frustrated. It's not over. It's not over. I give us a fighting chance. I do. We're not very good on the road. We're banged up at our point guard position. We're banged up with our star shooting guard, and we're on the road. But in the end, they're without Kawhi Leonard. They have been playing well above their norm. Can Reggie Jackson keep it up? Can Marcus Morris keep it up? What did he do last night? I felt like he was playing really well. 10 of 16, 25 points. I hate seeing that. So Marcus Morris, 10 of 16. Paul George, 12 of 22. Paul George had 37 points, 16 rebounds, 5 assists. How does Paul George get 16 rebounds and Rudy Gobert only gets 10? What's going on? Like, we just have to make adjustments. They've got to just look at film, make adjustments, get confident, and go win Game 6. Okay, moving on. Frustrated. The Hawks had the largest comeback in NBA postseason history last night. They outscored the 76ers 41-19, I believe it was, or 40-19. I'm going to look that up as well because I forget and I didn't make the note, but I think it was 41-19 in the 40-19. 40-19 in the fourth quarter. They outscored them by 21 points in one quarter, and it was the fourth quarter. They win by 3. Unbelievable meltdown. And how sweet it is to be right, which I am frequently. And Ben Simmons, I have said repeatedly for months how he is overrated. For months how he is a late game liability, and come playoff time, Hack-a-Simmons will be a thing. People don't do it in the regular season because it just doesn't matter as much. This dude is a complete non-factor. He's invisible out there. He went 4 for 14 from the line last night, 2 for 4 from the field, 4 for 14 from the foul line. I could shoot better than that left-handed, and I'm not joking. I could make 25% of my foul shots left-handed. What's going on with this guy? And I had all sorts of Sixers fans come at me saying, "Oh, you don't know anything. You're an idiot. They would never do Hack-a-Simmons. He's always in late. He's always in late in the game. You're crazy." Nope, I'm not. I was dead right. This guy's a total liability, and I think you're going to see him have to come out of close games late. He's scared to death of the foul line. He can't shoot, so he doesn't shoot. He's really good at driving to the rack, but now he's scared to death of going to the foul line, and rightfully so. 4-14 is not very good. So I guess the best spot for him to be is on the freaking bench because he can't do anything. Guy's a total liability. He's insanely overrated. I've said it for years, actually, but I've really been vocal the last several months. Ben Simmons is very overrated. Very overrated. He's not a key piece of a championship contending team. If he wants to humble himself, break down his shot, and learn to shoot, awesome. We watched Lonzo Ball do that, and my hat goes off to him. Well, actually, it's still on, but it's a joke for those that are just listening. I'm wearing a hat. Anyway, it's a Jazz hat. Ben Simmons overrated, and Trae Young goes off last night, 10 of 23, so didn't shoot tremendously well, but hit some key buckets. 39 points, 7 assists, 3 steals for Trae Young. 17 of 19 from the foul line. 17 of 19 from the foul line. So Hawks come back, win big. I don't know who's going to win that series. Again, I don't really care that much because whoever wins, the Nets or the Bucks, is going to go to the finals. Probably be the Nets, it looks like. We'll see how healthy they are come finals time and who they face. But Chris Paul likely out for a couple of games because of COVID protocol. And I'm hearing that he was vaccinated and he got COVID, so who knows what's going on there. Kind of weird. Okay, got to go back to a game that was a couple days ago. The day I did my last podcast on, what was it? Would have been Tuesday, right? Or today's Thursday, so it would have been Tuesday. And that was the Nets versus the Bucks. Kevin Durant had one of the greatest playoff performances in the history of the NBA. He's the first guy, the only guy, to have 45-plus points, 15-plus rebounds, and 10-plus assists. And he finished with 49 points. He missed a foul shot with just a few seconds to go. And he was pissed. And he was pissed because he knew that he just blew his chance for 50. He was sitting on 48 at the time, missed the foul shot, and made the second one to get to 49. But right when he missed it, right when he got fouled, I was like, dude, he got 50. He got a 50-point triple-double. Misses the first one, back irons it. And it was just so mad. Dropped a hard F-bomb that the cameras picked up nice and clear. And, yeah, I mean, the game was already in hand, like they had won, so he wasn't mad because he didn't give them a chance to put it away. He was mad because he just missed out on a 50-point triple-double in the playoffs. But one of the greatest performances I've ever seen. And James Harden was, again, a non-factor offensively, like a non-factor from a statistical standpoint. But his presence out there was huge. So they find out that Kyrie Irving can't go. James Harden steps to the plate and says, you know what, I'm fine, let's do this. They immediately upgraded him from out to doubtful to questionable to playing. Just all within like a few hours. He gets just, he's going. So Durant finishes 16 of 23 from the field. 16 of 23. 49 points, 17 rebounds, 10 assists, 3 steals, 2 blocks. You will not see a better stat line in the playoffs than that. That is across the board dominant. 3 steals, 2 blocks to go with 49 points, 17 rebounds, and 10 assists. Wow. The guy cleaned house. 4 of 9 from 3, 13 of 16 from the foul line, 16 of 23 overall. Dominant. James Harden, as I mentioned, 1 of 10. And he was 0 for 8 from three-point land. He was kind of like sitting out on the perimeter because he can't drive. Like you do a big burst of motion and you might burst your hamstring where he's at, you know. So he only had 5 points, 8 assists, 4 turnovers. Honestly, like statistically, it was one of the worst games James Harden has ever played in his entire life. But his presence out there kept the Bucks defense honest. It kept them on their toes, kept them wondering. Because I don't care if James Harden's hamstring is hurt, you can't give that guy an open 3. You know, they didn't know he'd go 0 for 8, but they had to be honest. They had to stay honest defending him. He played 46 minutes. Kevin Durant played all 48, did not sit for a single second. That was like heroic championship, legendary basketball. He is clearly the best player on the planet. It's not even close. I was talking to a friend. I was like, let's just be real for a second. My buddy Tanner. I said, let's be real. You are the Lakers. The Nets call you up and they say, hey, we'd like to give you Kevin Durant for LeBron James straight up. 1,000% yes. Like, the Lakers would do that in a heartbeat. The Nets would never do that because they have Kevin Durant. The Lakers would. You could go down the list. Giannis, Kawhi. There's nobody, maybe Kawhi because he's, you know, a little bit younger and, you know, hasn't had any major injuries. He's sits out a lot for smaller injuries, and this might be a major one he just had if it's an ACL tear. But there's almost nobody in the league that wouldn't trade that a GM wouldn't trade for Kevin Durant straight up for. He's clearly the best player in the league. So Kevin Durant like cemented it as being the best player in the league. The other thing I wanted to mention with the Nets is Blake Griffin is playing extremely well. And there's all sorts of talk about how he was just really, you know, slicing and dicing his way out of Detroit, and he really pulled the wool over their eyes and blah, blah, blah. And he did him dirty and he owes him money back. And I'm like, no, he's playing great because he's happy. He's happy. He's in a cooler city. He's on a better team. He's winning again. It's fun again. You know, it's almost like somebody that got divorced, you know, and like they were just depressed and sad and the relationship wasn't any good and it was dying and they were dying inside. And I'm not encouraging divorce, by the way, but that, or maybe we'll just say a breakup, you know, a relationship that's just not that great. And you get out of it and then you find somebody who you like fit better with and you're like, oh, like all of a sudden I have good jokes to tell and I'm happy again and I want to go do this activity and that activity and I want to work out more and I want to work harder at my job and make more money. And like life just gets better. You're just like, boom, boom, boom. I'm rolling. That's what's happening to Blake Griffin right now. He wasn't doing the Pistons dirty. He just hated it there. The team wasn't any good. The city sucks. No offense. And he wanted out. And he got out, and now he's good again because he's happy again. It's fun again. And he's reinvigorated. He's re-energized. He's rejuvenated. He's all sorts of other things. So that's what's going on with Blake Griffin. He's motivated. He wants to win a title. He's a key contributor on a title contending team late in his career. Like, what more can you ask for? So, okay, last couple things I'm going to wrap up with. Stan Van Gundy was fired this morning as the Pelicans head coach. Called that one like months ago. Said it should have happened months ago. And it should have. And he's not the guy for the job. And we'll see if the Pelicans can hang on to that core they have, because they have actually got some young studs on that team. And they missed the playoffs. Real bummer. But Stan Van Gundy was fired. The other thing I wanted to mention was the All-NBA teams were announced. And there's all sorts of talk about who got snubbed, who should have made it, who shouldn't have. And Donovan Mitchell did not make the first, second, or third team. Okay? The guy was the best player on the best team from start to finish. And then you've got guys, and he only sat out, he did miss a few games, like 16. But then you have guys who missed a ton of games. Joel Embiid, he deserved it. But Julius Randle, I look at the third team. Okay, the third team, All-NBA third team was Bradley Beal. And you tell me if there's a guy on this list that you truly and sincerely, you're a GM, would you take any of these guys over Donovan Mitchell? One of them is going to be tough because of last night's game. But Bradley Beal, Jimmy Butler, Paul George, Rudy Gobert, Kyrie Irving. There's not a guy on that list that I would take over Donovan Mitchell. I really mean that. And I know you're thinking, oh, Kyrie. But how good is Kyrie really? Kyrie's a great player. He's an all-star. He's a superstar. But he's frequently hurt. He's a bit of a diva. He's proven as the number one guy that he makes his teams worse. We've got evidence, just piles and piles of evidence of that. So no, I wouldn't take Kyrie over Donovan Mitchell. I wouldn't. Rudy Gobert, obviously I'm taking Donovan Mitchell over Rudy Gobert, even though Rudy is the greatest defensive player maybe of my lifetime. Paul George, that one's really close. Jimmy Butler, also really close, but I'm taking Donovan Mitchell. Bradley Beal, also really close, but I'm taking Donovan Mitchell. All five of those guys I would get rid of if it meant I could get Donovan Mitchell. Donovan Mitchell doesn't make it. The second team, Joel Embiid, LeBron James, Damian Lillard, Chris Paul, Julius Randle. Very good players. Can't argue with any of that. But Julius Randle on the second team over Donovan Mitchell? I don't think so. First team, Giannis, Steph, Luka, Jokic, and Kawhi. Tough to argue with any of those. But you look at of the 15 players, I feel confident that there's 6 at least that Donovan Mitchell is better than, and he didn't make any of them. You also didn't see Devin Booker. I've got a list here of potential snubs, but you saw a lot of guys on here that didn't play a ton of games, like Embiid, LeBron. But you didn't see Devin Booker on the list. You didn't see Jason Tatum. You didn't see Donovan, obviously. You didn't see James Harden. He missed quite a few games, but he was dominant. You didn't see Kevin Durant, also probably because he missed too many games. Trae Young, I don't think he deserved it. Zion, I thought Zion had a great year, didn't make it. So to me, the biggest snub was Donovan Mitchell. Second biggest, probably Devin Booker. Fourth biggest, probably Jason Tatum. But I have that threshold of I think you need to play more games. And I think if they would do that, you'd see stars playing more games. But now all these injuries, you're going to see more load management. The NBA's got to do something about this. They've got to do something about their scheduling. They got to do something about load management. They got to do something about injuries, because this is guys' livelihood. They are not going to, nor should they, risk their livelihood for a game. I got to put myself in their shoes. I want to win. I don't think load management should be a thing, but and I hope that Conley does go tomorrow, because the truth is, if he tears his hamstring tomorrow, it just doesn't matter that much. He'll be out for a couple months, but it's the off season. That's his job. That's part of the job for making $30+ million. So I hope he does go tomorrow. But in the regular season, in the middle of the season, you got a slightly sore hamstring? Nah, bruh, I'm sitting out. I'm going to sit out for a couple weeks to make sure this thing heals up, because I'm not missing out on a chance for a big contract next year that could make me $100 million plus over the next several years. And we need me for the playoffs anyway. So load management's going to be a thing as long as scheduling sucks. So they need to get rid of back-to-backs entirely. Literally entirely. There should never be another back-to-back NBA game ever. It should not exist. So, all right, a lot of stuff today. Go Jazz. Wearing the Jazz hat. Staying true. Hoping for a Game 6 victory. Hoping for a Game 7 victory. Hoping for a Western Conference Finals victory. Hoping for an NBA Finals victory. We will see. Nets Bucks tonight. I'm taking the Nets. I am out. Peace.
Thanks for hanging with Simply the Best Sports Take. Don't forget to subscribe to this podcast and check out STBSportsTake.com. Simply the best in sports.
'Cause we are